Hi, I'm Anthony Mangano, and welcome to City of Churches. Today we're on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to visit the Blessed Sacrament Church. Now, as you can see, there's some scaffolding going on because there's some renovations here. We're going to go inside and find out about it. We're going to talk to Father John Duffell about it. So come on, follow me, guys. There's some really cool stuff in here. Come on. Hi, and welcome to City of Churches. Today we're on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to visit Blessed Sacrament Church, and I'm here with Father John Duffell.
That's right.
Oh wow, I got a Father. I want to thank you so much for inviting us and the show to your beautiful church.
We always like to save people for Brooklyn.
Okay, here you go. That's okay. I hear that a lot. Well, although Brooklyn's becoming a really big popular borough now.
Well, for some people.
Now, Duffell, is that French or is that Irish?
It's Irish.
Because we were questioning that before. Like,
with
wow.
a French connection.
With a French connection. Well, I want to thank you so much for inviting us. When was the parish founded?
Parish was founded in 1887, and this is the second church. Well, actually, the third worship space. They started off in a stable on 72nd Street. Then they built a church on...
Wait, a stable?
A stable.
Like in the Bible?
Yeah,
like
stable.
When Jesus was... So
that's
that's
right.
Pretty biblical right there.
That's it. And then they built a church and a school and a rectory on Broadway between 70th and 71st Street. And then those places proved to be too small. And then this church was designed by one of the pastors who died before any construction was begun. Plans were further developed, and then it was finally built and that fellow died during the process of building. And then it was built or finished by another pastor. But Gustav Steinbeck, who was a young architect from Columbia University, I think a recent graduate, this might have been his first church building. I'm not certain of that. I know he did Queen of All Saints in Brooklyn, and he did St. Agnes Cathedral in Rockville Center, and a few others, something in Stanford or something. He designed this. It's modeled after Sainte-Chapelle, but much larger than Sainte-Chapelle. But it has all the characteristics of Sainte-Chapelle.
So it's basically on the Gothic kind of...
French Gothic.
French Gothic. As you could tell, I do so many of these, and I'm amazed when we come in because of the different designs in certain churches. And this is really...
well, it's 7 stories high.
7 stories?
7 stories high.
Well, I noticed when we came in, you were doing construction, renovation.
That's right.
And that's just on the outside?
We have to do a piece of the facade fell. And then when we examined things, the cornerstone was laid in 1917, right after the war. And this building was constructed, and we were in here worshiping in, I guess it was December of 1920. So when they went up and examined situations, they found that there had been some failures on the side of the building as well. And then the roof has to be replaced as well. So there's a major $4 million renovation program underway.
And thank God that it's happening, because there's a lot of churches that we visit that need, and somewhere in that estimated price, to renovate them again, to restore them, and they have to be restored because there's such beauty in them. You don't want to lose them because it's so exquisite.
Well, this might be the most beautiful in the city, really. I know that there are some places that would object to that thought, but it's true.
Absolutely, it's absolutely beautiful. I agree with you.
It really is quite something. It's an interesting parish. It's an interesting part of the city. When it was built was when the subway was being built, and I think that's why they might have moved it off of Broadway, which might have been a mistake, but maybe not. Well, it's a mid-block building. You'd almost miss the beauty of the exterior, which you can't see because of the scaffolding.
Probably it was, at that time, there must have been a lot of empty space around the church.
Absolutely. And
built up, because I know that when they do build these churches, when they did build them, there was always enough room for the light to illuminate through the windows.
That's right.
How has the demographics changed from when the church first opened?
Well, I think it was very much an Irish area when it first opened, as was much of the West Side. But that changed over a period of time. I mean, back when I was first ordained, back in 1969, I was assigned to Hell's Kitchen, which is very close to this area. And I knew this area, and you'd have on Broadway what would be called Needle Park. And it was a very depressed area on one side of the city, on one side of Broadway. but not towards West End. West End would have been still an area where people of means would be living. That's changed greatly now. This is a very young parish. If you come in here, you fall over baby carriages. Our school is filled to capacity. We're talking about enlarging it. It's really just quite something. And people can't believe it. And just north of Lincoln Center, part of our parish is in Lincoln Center. The parish runs from 65th Street to 77th Street, from the park to the river. You'd have all sorts of young people and young families.
That's really a great thing to hear, because you hear in so many parishes throughout the boroughs that a lot of schools have been closing.
Yeah.
And for this one to flourish like that, especially in Manhattan, I think that's really nice to hear.
Oh, it is. You know, our numbers go up every week. We have new people registering every single week. We do lose people because of the world of finance and the like, where people move and switch their jobs. But for the most part, it's a rather young parish, and we've entered into a planning process here that's just unbelievable. And we put out, when the committee that put it together, they asked for volunteers. They got a whole huge number of people, and almost everyone was in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Which is unusual for a Catholic.
Yes, it is. That's why because we do so many of these, and you hear stories, and that's really, really a nice thing to hear, that the Catholic schooling, Catholic education is thriving here.
No, it's really come alive in the last couple of years.
Well, that's a testament to you as well, and the church here, that it's a great place to come.
Oh, it is. You should even come across the river sometime.
I come across, I'm here. Listen, I know you have a theater downstairs.
We do.
So you do secular and non-secular down there?
Yes, much of children's theater right now. And part of the planning process is that the committee just is struggling with how should the theater be both Catholic and part of the city of New York. I mean, it's an off-Broadway theater without question.
I did a reading of a play down there
many
years ago, so I know. I knew of it when I was doing research. I said, oh, wow, I was there.
Quite a place.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, you know, the lower part of this, under this building, we have the theater, which is 3,000 square feet, and then we have a hall, which is 7,000 square feet.
All within this area?
Right under this
Right
building.
under here?
Right under here.
That seats a lot of people. That's amazing. Speaking of seating, how many people do you fit in here?
Well, we made some changes here. We would seat about 550 people easily.
And was the baptismal font there all along,
No.
or did you move? Because I noticed a lot of places now, a lot of churches move it to the center of the church.
Well, when I first came here, we had a wooden baptismal font that we pulled out and used. There had been a baptismal font in the back of the church in the vestibule, but that was done away with a while back. So this was put in, and then the permanent altar, which matches the old altar, the old high altar, was placed at the same time. That would be about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And this area was recreated or reshaped in this fashion.
That's an amazing organ up there.
Well, the organ is phenomenal, and we're really working on it a lot in the last couple of years. And right now, at one point, the wooden facing of the organ was pulling away, but now it's been restored, and it's beautiful. And the sound of the instrument is phenomenal.
Well, I was reading about that the whole church kind of vibrates.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is very cool, because as you hear it playing, you're into the music, so to speak, as it's vibrating. I understand it was restored a couple of times.
Yes, it was. I don't know the whole history of all of the restorations, but at the present time, it really is being put back together again by Stanton Doherty, who's the caretaker for the organ.
Yeah, I tell you, we've gone to so many churches, and a lot of the organs that had to be repaired because they don't make parts like that anymore. And I was watching how they have to fabricate it, to replicate it, and to do it, and it's an amazing job. And when it's done, but that's absolutely breathtaking. Especially your rose window.
I've been told that it's the second largest rose window in New York. Now, I would think maybe the third. It follows the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. It was a gift from the Heidi family. It really is a phenomenal piece of art.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back, because I have to ask you another question about something very important here that we're going to talk about. We'll be right back. Well, we're back, and we're at Blessed Sacrament Church here in Manhattan, the Upper West Side of Manhattan, with Father John Duffell. I almost called you Duval again.
No, that happens.
Well, Robert Duvall's a great actor.
Absolutely, but not as good looking as I am.
No, you've got him there. Now that's a chalice in the middle, if I'm correct?
Yeah, there is a chalice in the middle. The whole notion of the Blessed Sacrament, there's no real symbolism except for that up there. But it really is done beautifully, and it's all in blues.
Now, The stained glass windows, was it the same designer or is it a different designer for the stained glass windows?
I think a different designer for the stained glass windows. I know that the fellow who did the rose window was a European, but it was designed here in the United States, and he had moved here to the U.S.
It's a different look to it, you could see. Similar but different than the stained glass windows above the Stations of the Cross.
Well, those are all dedicated to the Blessed Sacrament in some way, shape, or form. If you come in here early in the morning, I'd come in sometimes to open the church before 7, and there's light coming in. It really is unbelievable. You can really see a lot of the beauty of the windows.
I could actually see that. The Stations of the Cross are absolutely breathtaking as well.
They are. They're quite something.
Each church kind of has its own appeal and look to them. It's like I'm looking at a painting that's actually moving, like coming to life, like in a 3D version of it.
Well, this young architect was really, he must have picked out all of these things. I think everything that you're talking about is original to the church.
Well, then he did a fantastic job. Father, we were talking about how high the ceilings are, and that has to be probably one of the biggest crucifixes I've ever seen in my life.
It is, it's huge.
It's got to be like 20 feet high.
I don't know the exact dimensions of it, but it's really quite something.
I thought there was one. There's 3 cables holding it. It must weigh a ton.
Yeah. It drives me a little crazy because it's about 1/10 of an inch off center, but that's beside the point.
Oh boy, that sounds very OCD right there.
Absolutely.
I couldn't tell, but I guess you can because it's your church. How did that come about? Because
well, it's a gift again from the Heidi family, the family that gave the stained glass windows.
That was really nice. That's big contributors here.
They were a major part of this parish community.
Father, didn't you say that since they were such great contributors to the church, did they own a candy? I heard something I wasn't.
I believe the Heidi Candy Company, the Heidi Candy.
Juju?
I believe that's part of it.
Yeah, no, it's a big thing when you hear that. Juju be, I think that's how you say it. Who could not be happy with candy? We were talking before about the choir. In the choir loft, is there a choir?
Oh, sure, there's a choir. There's a parish choir that sings at the 12:30 Mass. And then we have a choir that sings at the 5:30 Mass, but they don't sing from the choir loft. It's more a young adult celebration. The place is kind of very crowded with young adults. And that choir practices at 4 o'clock, and they sometimes there are 11 members, sometimes more, sometimes less. But they use the piano here on the side. And that's quite a different sort of celebration, a wild celebration. And then, of course, once a month we have Spirit Sunday after that, when you can have something stronger than coffee downstairs.
Oh, okay. I might have to come in just for that then.
Last Sunday of the month.
Is it strictly an English Mass, or is there a Spanish Mass?
At 11:15 every Sunday there's a Spanish celebration. But a Spanish congregation is smaller as the neighborhood has been changing.
Okay.
But there's still a very strong Spanish presence in the parish.
Because you hear, different parishes have like a Spanish Mass, an Italian Mass. It's pretty amazing, the demographics that change per neighborhood. You were telling me something earlier that somebody very famous who passed away just recently had his...
Oh, Jimmy Breslin.
Yeah,
Jimmy
great.
Oh, he's a great guy. And he came from Brooklyn, but no, Queens, actually.
Okay.
He lived next door to Mario Cuomo. I think that's what established that relationship.
Really?
The Cuomos and the Breslins lived next door to one another. He was a parishioner here at one point, and also was married here to Ronnie Ulrich, his second wife. His first wife died at about the age of 50, leaving him with 6 children, and her husband had died, leaving her with 3 children.
Oh boy, the Brady Bunch.
So they got married here back in, I think it was 87 or 86, something like that. I can't remember. He used to take up the collection here at times.
Really?
Yeah.
So then he was like it's like you hear stories, someone when they were little, like, an altar boy, and they still come back.
He was very Catholic, very, very much devoted to his faith. But it was a very great celebration here, filled with many, many people.
I imagine there were a lot of celebrities here.
Oh, absolutely. The governor was here and spoke, and as well as a number of other people.
Wow.
Quite something.
He was a great man.
I think so.
I liked him. I always liked him. God rest his soul.
That's right. I don't know if heaven is the same since you went there.
He might be stirring up some stuff.
Might be writing a column.
Well, a column. And God going, oh no, not him again. It's such some great stuff. Even the tile work in here is amazing too. The decor and the artwork.
The whole detail in the building is really spectacular. Everything was chosen. The priest who put it together, I mean, it was Father Keegan's church. That's the way people knew it. And he didn't even live to see it, but he picked all sorts of things, and picked this architect, and I think worked very closely with him.
You were mentioning something and bringing up architect. You said the school is adjacent?
Yes, the church and the school were built as one, as was the rectory. They were all built at the same time.
So everything went up at once.
Once at
Wow,
one
I can't
time.
even imagine the price that was back then compared to what it would be today. If it's $4 million just
Just to do the exterior.
exterior.
That's all we're doing.
You were saying there was the way to get into the roof is through the...
There's a catwalk above the roof of the ceiling of the church, between the ceiling and the roof, and you enter through the school. The school is 6 stories high.
Have you ever been in there?
I would never go up
I
there.
can't either. I'd be scared.
No,
I'd be afraid I'd come right through.
I would.
Well, when we come back, we're going to go up to the altar, and we're going to look at the crucifix, and we're going to look at the tapestries, and I have some other questions for Father. So we'll be right back. Well, we're back, and we're in the sanctuary at Blessed Sacrament Church here with Father John Duffell. Father, that is so amazing, that crucifix.
The crucifix is unbelievable.
And that was from the Heidi family?
The Heidi family.
Like the stained
window.
the rose window.
The rose window. It's perhaps the second largest rose window. I'm told it's the second largest rose window in the city of New York.
Well, then the Heidi family also donated
the crucifix.
That is amazing, that crucifix. I'm a little nervous standing under it.
It's been up there for quite a while.
Okay. Now, as far as the baldacchino.
The baldacchino covers the main altar. It's a kind of a shield to say that something special was happening at that prayer. Around the baldacchino are the symbols of the 4 evangelists, and then below it are the saints that are mentioned in the Roman canon of the Mass.
And now, is that the original altar?
That's the original altar.
And we were saying before, it matches...
This one was placed to match that in many ways.
And like you were saying, the Alpha, the Omega, and the crucifix. Now, the ceilings are so high in here. It's amazing. When we look up, I'm getting dizzy.
7 stories high.
And the baldacchino, can you explain a little bit?
Well, the baldacchino covers the old main altar. That was prior to the Second Vatican Council. After the Second Vatican Council, there was a movement away from the priests facing back to the people, turning towards the people. So we have a new altar that matches the old altar. You'd find the same symbolism. Here you'd find the cross in the center as you find the cross in the center up there. Then you have the Alpha and the Omega on the sides, where you have them on the side panels there. Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. And then the Sanctus, you'd have the same thing. You'd only have one word, Holy, 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 which is the opening of the Eucharistic prayer. Those are the words that are found.
And this is the original altar?
It's the original altar. This is all original.
So this is about 100 years old?
This is just about 100 years old. The cornerstone was laid in 1917, and they finished the building well, the school is attached to it. The school wraps right around behind the sanctuary here, and the school opened in September of 1919. We were worshiping in the building in December. I think the first major Mass was the Midnight Mass on December 25th, 1920.
Well, I'm looking at the beautiful tapestries that are here.
But the tapestries donated, they're American tapestries, which people would find very interesting.
They were made in
America, and they were donated by the Wood family. And the 3 symbols, I mean, Melchizedek give blessing Abraham, and that would be the sacrifice of Isaac bringing his son to be sacrificed, and then the ram is on the side, which was replaced, and then the crucifixion above, which is the center tapestry. Very beautiful piece. And even in terms of the touches on the side of the old main altar, the credence table was placed right into the wall, and on this side you'd have the oil stocks, or the place where the oils would be kept.
Now, I noticed the pulpit here.
Oh, the pulpit is very famous. This is which a man named Fulton J. Sheen got his start.
Bishop Sheen?
Bishop Sheen got his start in this pulpit.
That's something for our viewers, right on that pulpit?
Right in this pulpit, you know.
Now, that's a landmark, I guess, in a way.
Want to feel his ghost, you can come here.
That truly is nice. I noticed that we're looking at a lot of things here, and it is definitely amazing. What is the most important relic or artifact, or the most important thing here at this church for you?
Well, the important thing here is the people, because it's the people of God who come here. They're the church. This is just the building in which the church gathers. As any church building would be just that. But it's a very special place. I mean, you can't do anything but lift your mind and heart to God when you come in here. I mean, you're touched by the beauty of the place.
No,
and everything, the people who put it together just were so careful and concerned. Even the touches over the doorways into the various sacristies. Everything, the detail in this place is just spectacular.
So we'll just say the whole church.
The whole church. Even if you go around and look at the plaques that mark the way things were given, they're placed right into the wall. gorgeously done.
It is absolutely,
is.
it's absolutely gorgeous. So I want to say that the most important thing about this church is the people and the church itself to you.
Absolutely.
Father, I want to thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For inviting us into your beautiful church here, Blessed Sacrament. And I understand you have a website?
We do. I think it's www.blessedsacramentnyc.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of City of Churches. And if you have any questions, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or you can write into us at 1712 10th Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. Father, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
For inviting us here to this beautiful church, Blessed Sacrament Church in the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Which is the best side of Manhattan.
The best side of Manhattan. Again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, God bless you. I'm Anthony Mangano.